Hey, what's up, comrades? I started watching a new anime called The Executioner and Her Way of Life. It's alright so far. So the gist is, there's this world, it's like an isekai world, right? So these people from Japan, these kids, get summoned, and when they get summoned, they get a special power called like a pure instinct or a pure concept. That's what it is, pure concept. And that these people with pure concepts, the more they use them, the more the individual kind of goes crazy and the pure concept takes over, quote unquote. And that's caused like the four great disasters or something, which we get like, they get like mentioned very casually, like, oh, the beast in the south and the reign of terror in the north and something. I've only finished we're starting with the first two episodes. So in the first episode, we see a guy, he gets summoned, he gets kicked out of the palace because he doesn't have like a good power or something. And then this girl who has like dreams of being in Japan and being a schoolgirl shows up and like takes him and is like, oh, hey, I belong to a church and we take care of whatever they call like the lost children, or she has a term for it. I can't remember exactly what it is. Maybe it is the lost. Anyway, so she takes him back to the church and she's trying to explain to him how the world works, and you see that like they've summoned a lot of people from Japan, and so they have a lot of like Japanese stuff. They all speak Japanese, and like it's heavily influenced their culture. And so they get back to the church, and she is like explaining all this stuff to him, and he's like, "Well, I was told I don't have a power, and they said it was null." And she's like, well, look at this thing and just concentrate really hard on like your heart or whatever. And then he does, and then he's able to like, his power is null, like nullification. So he's able to like destroy this thing, and he's getting super excited about it. And then she like cuts his head off essentially. And then he like explodes. And so we find out that there's this church. So there's three classes. There's like the peasant class, the noble class, and then the church. The church is like the highest class. And that she's an executioner for the church. And what she does is that when people get summoned from other worlds, they always cause like problems, and it like never turns out good. So there's a group of executioners who work for like God or something for the church, and they go around and execute all these people. And when she's talking to this kid before she executes him, she finds out that they summoned two people, so that this guy was clearly a distraction. She's got like a sidekick, and so she sends her off to like figure out more about that. And then we find out really quickly in the first episode, and it's reemphasized in the second episode. This is very I want to say, I'm trying to remember what the term is. So there's like yaoi, which is like boy love. This is very girl love. There's no term. It's like yaoi or something. So it's all going to be like girls fawning over each other. And that starts off pretty clear. So her assistant / sidekick, who's like another executioner, she like tries to dress her up like a maid and gets all like hot and bothered about it. And then when she goes to get the next girl, the other outworlder, that girl's like all about her as well. So she's got like a fan. She's got like her harem already starting to go. Which these kind of like girl love anime tropey things, they're not as like spicy as you think, right? So there's a lot of like erotic visual novels in my career. And you'll see stuff and it's like very like, yeah, girl, get it. I'm not big into like the whole lesbian thing, to be completely honest. Like it's never really done much for me, if anything. So I'm always kind of just like, meh. But with this genre, whatever it is, it's like even less so, because there's nothing to it. It's just like, ooh, I got a crush on you. Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, teehee. Like, who's this for? That person is not me. So I'm kind of like already like, oh man, how many episodes is this thing? Like, I don't know. I might just keep watching. I feel like there's going to be some like real anime stuff coming up. Like, the twist. Like, oh, killing these people is actually causing problems, or like something. I don't know. We'll see. I usually watch one or two of these a day, so I can knock this out in like a week or two. So it's really not that, big of an ask for me. But, so that's the first episode. In the second episode, we start with her, with the girl at like the castle where she was summoned, and she's like, hey, we gotta go. Let me rescue you. And then the girl's like, oh, they said something about healing magic or something. And she's like, cool. And so they're starting to like leave. And then at some point she like does a reversal on the girl and like stabs her in the neck, and it's like all done. And then when she does like, all these people, all these outworlders, when they die, there's always some grand thing that occurs. We get a flashback of the main character getting trained, or like when she first joined the church, she essentially was in a town that got attacked by one of these outworlders who was like losing control, and then this chick Flare like killed her, and then they turned into like a giant monster, and then like the bishop lady who's like in charge of the church, she like destroyed it, and they had a conversation, and she's like, well, you're a master now, so you gotta take care of that girl and raise her in the church. And she's like, rah. Anyway, so Flare was her master. It sounds like she's dead, because I keep referring to her in like the past tense. But the main character, Momo or something, Mino, I think it's Mino. So Mino, so that's like her past. That's how she got involved in this whole shebang. Anyway, so she has like instant kind of like feelings for this girl, and the girl is like very flirty with her, and then like the assistant's jealous. Oh, anyway, so when she kills him or kills her, she like resurrects. And so they're like, oh, it's like a time healing magic. And so the bishop's like, that's a lot of problems. We have a chamber here where we can like destroy anything. So I'll have it ready in 3 days. Just make sure she's here by then. And she's like, cool. And so they have like the Mimo and the, whatever her name is, the Outworlder girl, they have like some flirty breakfast time. And then the assistant gets jealous. You find out that the king who like sponsored all these summonings, these two, he's now going to be like executed for being like breaking the law, because it's like against the law to do this. So they're like, all right, cool, let's peace out. So they get her some clothes and they start traveling. We meet like the princess of the land, and she's a real like banger, if you will. Long blonde hair, sexy outfit, all that good stuff. Big sword for some reason. We also see that the girls, the more she uses her magic, the more it takes control of them, the more powerful it becomes. So she's like hanging out at the train station waiting for Mimo to get her some food, and this little girl runs by and like scrapes her knee, and so she heals that. And then we learn them there's like ether in the air, or there's like ether, and that combination between like skill and talent, and ether lets people to use magic craft, which is not really magic, but it's like technology magic, something bull crap. Anyway, and that's like what the priestess ladies have all been using, this like magic plus like a dagger. So I think that's it. Oh yeah, and so they're like, they get on the train and they start heading out. And then the assistant's like following behind just in case Mimo like fails or something happens, so she can like take care of business if needs be. And then the princess shows up, and she's in the credits, so I'm sure she's like some sort of main character here. Anyway, so that's our crew thus far. Hey, what's up? So I finished Executioner and Her Way of Life, episode 3. So we're moving on. So in this one, we got the train ride, and then the princess is there, and Momo, and what's her face, and Hikari, I think is the Outworlder girl. Anyway, they're all hanging out, having a good time, and then some terrorists attack because of reasons that are never determined. They want to kidnap the princess, but the princess is like a knight, so she beats a bunch of them up. The main character beats him up. Momo beats him up. Momo's got this sweet like Garrett wire that turns into a sword. It's like a saw blade. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so her and the princess start fighting, and there's like a whole thing between them fighting and complimenting each other, right? Yuri is the girl love thing from anime. I looked it up. Anyway, so then the main character finds out that all these terrorists have like these red gems in them, and they combine to make this red knight. And so she's fighting that, and the thing injures the train ether compartment or whatever, so that it's like a runaway train. But she used a lot of energy to defeat the red knight, because Hikari, the Outworlder lady, she like showed up. And there's a whole scene where like there's some heavy handing. We'll get there. Okay, so she uses a bunch of her ether up to destroy the red knight to protect Hikari, and then she's like, I can't stop to train with the magic I have left, but I can like join ether with like this girl, and then I can absorb her mana and use it. And so they climb to the top of the train, and then she's like, hey, it's going to hurt a lot. It doesn't hurt me because of reasons. And, but can you handle it? And Hikari's like, yeah, for sure. And then she just gets like hot and bothered. But she's able to stop the train before it crashes. And then at the end, the main character is like reflecting upon what occurred. And she's like, if we weren't able to stop that train, we would have all been dead. And she's getting these like flashes of images of the train crashing and killing everybody. And she's like wondering about it, because at some point, and then it kind of like hints back to, there was a point while all this stuff was going on where there was like a time reset. It looked like the princess and Momo and the main character are they're like doing stuff, they're fighting their individual battles, and then all of a sudden there's like a zip, and they're like, huh? Did something happen? Right, so there's a possibility the train actually did crash, and then the girl used her powers to to reverse time to bring everybody back, which is the opposite of what they wanted to happen. And then she was able to like come forward. So there's definitely some hints that there's like some more anime shenanigans going on, which is good because that's why I watch anime. So fun stuff. All right, cool. Oh, hey, what's up, comrades? So just finished episode 4 of The Executioner and Her Way of Life or whatever. Show's pretty boring, I'm not gonna lie. Like the last episode was a tiny wee bit exciting, but this episode we just get kind of like the origin story of Minnow, who's the main character, and we go back to like when Flair, her mentor, like rescued her from the salt monsters or whatever, the pure concept lady, and then the old lady is like, hey, you got to take her and whatever, and then so Flair takes her Minnow to this island, and the whole thing's like salt. And she explains that you see that's a sword, that's a salt sword, to turn this whole place into like salt, and the whole thing's collapsing into the ocean. And this is one of like the 4 great tragedies. What happened in your village is nothing. And that's when Minnow kind of wakes up and is like, oh, my life's really not that big of a deal. And then she's like, I want to do what you do. And so then Flair takes her back to like the academy where they train executioners. And then Minnow's the only one who doesn't have negative feelings about murdering people, right? And she has this conversation with Flair, and then Flair explains to her that she's very middle of the road and all her stuff, and that she is not even that pretty, but Minnow doesn't care. She's like, no, I'm going to do it. And she's like, all right, let's do it. And then we come back to the present, and sorry, I'm still sick. We come back to the present, and Minnow and the Outworlder girl, whatever her name is, they go to the church, and the old lady's like, oh, nice to meet you in person finally. I have a task for you while we wait for the 2 days for this like ritual to go down. Can you go figure out why these girls are missing? And so she goes, and then the girl who has a crush on Minnow from the other world is like a girl about it, and so she like pouts and goes and takes a bath. Anyway, so Minnow feels bad, so she gets Momo to start looking into things for her so she can take this girl out on like a sightseeing date. And then they like, the girl from the other world like comes out of like the bath with just a towel and like apologizes. And Minnow's like, oh, it's no big deal, I'll take you. And then she hugs her and loses her towel, and that's the episode. And then we get Momo, who's the assistant to Minnow, who a couple times in this episode, as she's done previously, is like, you need to be careful with that girl. And then Minnow's like, oh, I know, she's super powerful, turn back time, all this stuff. And Momo's like, that's not what I'm talking about. And obviously what she's talking about is Yuri Love, so good stuff. Anyway, yep, there you go. That's that episode. Catch you later. What's up? So, the next the next episode of The Executioner's Way of Life, episode 5, we start off they're going on like a little date, the 2 main character girls, and one of them's like, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone, I'm gonna miss you. It's a lot of that Yuri kind of stuff. It's fine. And then Momi, there's like, I can't remember the names. So then the like assistant priest is gonna go check out something, because there's like this old palace that like seems kind of sketch, and she was like looking into it, and she's like, I'm gonna investigate this some more because it seems kind of sketch. Meanwhile, the main character girl, Momo, and the Isekai girl, they go on another date where main character like buys gifts for all her ladies, her harem, and then they head off to the ceremony, and she's like, oh, da 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 da. And they get there, and she has some banter with the bishop, and then we go back to Momi, the assistant lady, and she's like, investigate, and she finds a secret passage that leads to the princess. It's like, oh, what's the princess doing here? That's sketchy. Nope, it's fine. So the princess and her decide to have like a truce, and they're just chit-chatting about stuff, and they enter this room that is clearly not the nobles like design. It's clearly designed by the priest caste. Remember, there's 3 castes. There's lower caste, priest caste, and nobles caste. And then her and the princess have like a conversation, and then the assistant lady's like, I gotta warn Momo because something sketch is happening. And so she tries, but then like her magic's blocked, and then the princess throws her sword in the wall, and now she can communicate. And then back at that ceremony, everyone's kind of doing their thing, and then the main character gets like a message, and she's like, ruh-roh, and she looks over at the priestess lady, the bishop, and the bishop's like, aha, you figured out my nefarious plan. And then they have like a little mage battle, and then the main character gets knocked to the basement in a hole. And Isekai Girl's like, no, my girlfriend. So, and so what the main character sees in the basement is a bunch of ladies who have gone missing. Remember, she went on that investigation to go find missing ladies. They've been captured by the church, and she's sucking their blood out, or their essence. There's like a red liquid. And then the bishop lady's like, oh, I get so tired of people asking for my help all the time that I decided I was going to find a way to live forever. And it just is very fortuitous that you brought this girl who can like reverse time as her like prime ability. So now I'm going to use that. And then the main character's like, you can't do that. You can't make her do whatever. And then the bishop's like, remember that thing that like blanched everything with the sword and stuff? Well, we took some of that and made a device that blanches people's personalities, so then we can use it. Haha, we're nefarious. And then she summons like a blood monster to fight the main character. Meanwhile, Momo is like, I gotta go protect, or whatever. The assistant's like, I gotta go protect whatever, the main character. And then the princess is like, but there's a trap. And then a dragon shows up and they start fighting the dragon. And then Isekai Girls gets captured again by the priest and like held down to the throne, and then we see like the bleaching thing start to work, and dun dun dun, that's the end of the episode. So episode 6, this show finally turns into an anime, which means it actually gets a little interesting. So we're in the midst of all these battles, things are going okay. Right before the Isekai Girl is gonna be bleached, she like changes into a totally different person. Not like physically. She's just like, all right, enough of this. And she like starts using her magic like very actively, in that she's like, nope, no one's allowed to kill me but Mimo or whatever the main character is. And so then she just like, reverses time, steps out of the chair, shuts everyone the fuck up, and is like, and then she does this thing with the assistant. I don't know, she like teleports over to her and is like, changes like the hair clips or something, which is like a big deal because they were given by the main character and it means so much, and yada yada yada. And she's like, sorry Momo. And so she clearly knows everybody and it has a lot more information than it's like initially given. And then when she takes care of like everything, she's like, all right, that should be good, everything should be fine. And she says something about, I had to do this as a train year too. So she's very cognizant of all this. And then she like does something to her brain. She's like, takes her hand, like a gun, to her head. And she's like, all right, so I'm going to remember everything like deja vu, but I'm going to set everything back to the way it is, where she's like kind of innocent until there's like a threat, it seems to me. And then she goes like, bang. And then she's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? She makes a comment about having to do this thing like multiple times, and how like the thing that's dripping from the sky, she like tries to affect it, and she's like, yeah, I still can't figure out why I can't change that. But remember, that thing's built on someone else's like powers, so it's probably why. Probably just don't interact well. Anyway, so this chick is like way more knowledgeable about what's going on. This is I wouldn't say this is as grand as like a reveal as that one show, The Music, The Last Note, or whatever, The Lost Note, where you're just like, what the fuck? But I was still like, oh, all right, there's more going on here. I'm very pleased. Very pleased. And then we go to Momo, and she gets her hair stuff burned off, and she loses it. And you find out that she is an exceptionally strong fighter with tons of mana, because she kicks the shit out of that dragon with her bare fist. And I'm like, man, this is the best character in the show. And then she's like, no more. And then she like blows up like the castle. And then the princess hops out, and she hops out, and the princess kills like this other monster that I don't remember seeing, like this tentacle beast, using some super like, I'm playing Kingdom Hearts right now, and Agua, who's the best character in Dream Drop Distance or whatever I'm playing, she has this ability I don't know how to unlock, but every now and then she gets this thing where she gets this giant light sword and just like beats the shit out of things. And that's what the princess in this uses. And then Momo dives into, and then we go back to the main character, and her and the priest and the bishop are like do kind of going at back and forth. And then the Isekai lady runs in and gives her a hug. She's like, oh, she's like, I told you to run. What are you doing here, crazy bitch? She's like, no, I will be with you forever. And then Momo like crashes down and like hits like the monster that's fighting, and like knocks it out. She's, that's right, I am pissed. And then for some reason, the main character's like, oh, I gotta cover her eyes so she doesn't see Momo for some reason. I don't know what that's all about, but it's kind of wild. I feel like I missed something there. But so then she's like, Momo, get out of here. And so Momo, or whatever the assistant character, like goes to fight the blood monster elsewhere, and then the main character and the bishop start fighting again. But this is a great thing about anime. But before, it's like we learn that she has like unlimited ability to tap like this girl's mana. And so she does that, but she doesn't just do that. She they look into each other's eyes, and she absorbs some of her like prime ability, which is the time travel bullshit. And then she goes into she's able to like kind of see more than she should. It's almost like I'm reading Dresden Files. I know a lot of this stuff connects. And there's a whole thing in Dresden Files where if like you look into a mage's eyes, you will both like connect, and you will like read each other's thoughts essentially in life. And, so you like Dresden purposely avoids looking people directly in the eye. And then he does it like a couple times, but it's like a big deal. So this is almost like the same thing. So she absorbs all that knowledge and all this power, and then she beats the shit out of the bishop, kills her. She absorbs some of the Isekai girl's mana because she has so much of it, and it doesn't hurt her to do that. Remember, it's like a thing that occurred previously. For me, that was like weeks ago, but for you, it was probably 10 minutes ago if you're watching this whole video, or 5 if you're listening double speed. But and then is beating the shit out of her, but then she then at some point after that, she's like, I need to absorb more power. And so then that's when she kind of looks her in the eye and takes some of her like time travel power, and then she kills the bishop. The assistant kills the monster upstairs, and it's like everything's good. And they just like blow the shit out of a lot of stuff. Like Momo especially, she just like wrecks shop. Like she takes she takes the dragon, turns it into a blood ball at some point, and just destroys this barrier that's protecting like the church. Like just fucking destroys it. And it's like, holy shit, she is so strong. I love it. Especially because she's a lowly character in this game. Mwah. That's all I have to say about that. So then the Isekai girl's like passed out in the room, and the main character and Momo are like having a conversation, and the main character is essentially telling her like, hey, she knows everything about us. We have a much deeper relationship. She must have time traveled back, like who knows how far. Otherwise, there's no way we would have had this connection as deeply. And there's like more there. And then we get like her dream, the Isekai girls, and we see her holding the main character while she's like fading into dust. And then, hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
And then we see Flare. We see Flare, and she's like, I'm gonna kill you, to the Isekai girl. And they definitely, there's like a lot more going on there. So it's like, yes, anime's finally arrived. So episode 7 and 8 here, they're kind of slow. They get to this new city, and we learn about this thing called Pandemonium, which is where the first, I guess they call it the original sin. The first individual that was someone from another world came and like created her ability was that anything she thought of was manifested, and they became like demons, I guess. And then her blood became monsters. There's a conversation at some point between the assistant and the princess about 1,000 years ago they summoned this lady, and that's where monsters and demons come from. And the difference between monsters and demons is that monsters are like aberrations, or like they're infused with something, and then demons are like demons. They're just like born that way, or they were created that way. So for example, the princess is talking about fighting gargoyles and calls them demons, and then the assistant is like, they're actually closer to monsters because they're fused with demon spirits, but they're just stone. So there's like a chain alteration in like their construct, which I guess is what monsters are. The reason this comes up is because there's, in this new town they're at, I don't remember the name, there's this group. So if you remember, there's like 3 castes. There's like poor caste, priest caste, noble caste. And then there's this group here that's like the 4th caste. And Fleur, the main character's mentor, came and like killed the head of this because they were like causing problems, and like broke them up real good. Then, so they have like a real beef against Flora, and these episodes center around the new head, which is the daughter of the previous head, and how she's utilizing she's like killing people in this like magical device to create this very addictive medicine, or drug, it's not really medicine, that turns people into monsters. And she uses it against one of the people in like her council, and she actually uses it against everybody in the council secretly because she's like crazy. And her big goal is to get revenge on Flora by killing Florette. So there's a lot of conversation about them being there, the fourth sect or whatever, and things going down with that, and how being careful. Also, Pandemonium is like where all the monsters come from, and Pandemonium is like the prison for like where the monsters are or whatever. And so at some point, the assistant is asking the main character, like, are you going to use Pandemonium to try to kill the Isekai girl? And she's like, yeah, it's a good idea. So she like drugs her, so she falls asleep and puts her on a raft and like sends her into the Pandemonium. And when she gets in there, she like, her like true self like wakes up and is like, oh, this again, this is funny. And she's like, oh, that dumb monster, I get so tired of being eaten by it. But then she's like, all right, well, I'm just going to reverse time before that happens. But before that happens, she's like, oh, there's a light. That's never happened before. And then she like pops back up in the boat with the main character, and you know, is playing dumb again, of course. So then there's like the typical yaoi or yuri kind of like, oh, I love you, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, blah 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 blah. We also get to meet the head of the church in this province. She's like very nonplussed about Florette being there and not killing this girl, and her name's not Florette. The main character lady, she's like, she's trying to get funds, and they're trying to travel to this place called Sanctuary. But then, like, I thought this priestess lady was like, Sanctuary doesn't exist, or they're not going to take her. And you got to find a way to kill her. You don't have anything. But if you help me figure out what's going on with this drug, then we'll give you the money you need to continue your journey. And she's like, all right, I'm going to help. And then, so she pulls the assistant in, and the assistant is like, okay, I'll figure it out. And she beats up some thugs. And thugs are like, oh, our boss wouldn't let us take the drug. And then the boss is the princess. At some point, the assistant had like trapped. She had like run into the princess again. They have quite the relationship, and they trapped her in like an underground cavern. And that's where she fought the gargoyles. I know this review's all over the place. I'm just trying to remember everything. Okay, so then she's like, oh yeah, I got an invite to this party from this crazy lady. So let's have a sneak off. If you can get in there and get the information before I do, then like you win something. And then the assistant's like, cool. So then she tells the main character gets the priestess to like help her get an invitation, and also Isekai girl. And so they all dress up like super sexy, and it's like, all right, time to party. And then that's where we leave off. So nothing really happens these 2 episodes. We just get some more kind of alluding to, oh, gross. I totally took the wrong one. I don't know why this gate is always so packed up. Anyway, that sucks. That sucks so bad. Alright, well, we're here. Alright, so... Dang it. Oh well. So yeah, so that's the deal. That's where we're at now. And we've got a few episodes left, see where this goes. I feel like a lot of this is rushed, and we're glossing over a lot of stuff. So I don't know anything about this show, but I'm assuming it's based on a light novel just because of how quickly they're, like, moving through stuff. Yeah. All right, cool. What up, comrades? So, continuing onward, these next episodes focus on the crazy lady who's the daughter of the lady who was, like, in charge of the fourth. And so the party starts, and during the party, the Isekai girl and the main character, they're having a good time, and Isekai girl's trying to be friendly and talk to everybody, and main character's being a Debbie Downer. And so they kind of split up for a little bit. Isekai girl goes and does whatever, and then main character girl goes to like investigate. In her investigations, she runs into the princess, who's also doing an investigation, remember, because of the assistant and her having a conversation. And the assistant is also doing an investigation. And Isekai girl is also sort of doing an investigation. So we got four people investigation doing totally different things, even though they're all kind of trying to do the same thing because people just can't get along. Anyway, so the main character and the princess bump into each other, and they get into like a little battle. The assistant girl ends up in the basement where the demon summoning thing is, and she notices the same kind of setup as in the previous castle with like the church's clear influence on the architecture. And then instead of a crypt, which they found before, she finds an Iron Maiden, which is where the girl was sacrificed earlier to make the monster stuff. And inside, so the girl's still alive, so she does rescue her, but then she gets spiked with like a trap and gets poisoned a little bit. She gets rescued by the priestess lady and taken back, and then it's like the next morning, and the main character is watching over the assistant, and she's like, oh, I'm so sad this happened, blah, blah, blah. And the priestess lady's like, oh, my phone like died. Or my watch. Yeah, plug this thing more. Okay, anyway. So, but guess who's not around? Isekai girl. So everyone lost track of her. So what was she doing? So she was hanging out, talking to people, wandering around, and then like the main bad guy, who's the leader of the fourth, she like rolls up and they have a conversation, and she clearly knows that this guy girl has powers and that she's done multiple like time travels, which is not the way it's supposed to be, right? Because when you time travel, people aren't supposed to remember things. And so this guy girl sticks around and investigates the girl's apartment in her castle, along with everything else that's going on. And so the next morning when the bad guy girl, that's what we're going to call her, she's like, oh, someone's been in here. And then she wanders out and everyone's frozen, like all her council. And so then Isekai girl and her have a conversation. So apparently the girl, or Isekai girl's like, how come, okay, so you know what's going on. Why is there deviation in the time this time? Why is there so much change? And then the other girl's like, well, I don't know, Pandemonium told me something about it. It's like, Pandemonium, that weird fog? And she's like, yay! And then she tells her like sad story about how her mom was actually an Isekai girl, but she didn't get summoned. She just like randomly showed up, and her power was like knowledge. But then, and so her dad was leader of the fourth at the time. He fell in love. He like married her and gave her a baby, which is this girl, so that he could like keep her entrapped. But then he fell in love with her. So then he convinced like the council not to use her powers, because when you ever use your powers, you like lose some of your memory. Because he loved her and he didn't want her to forget their love. And then what was I thinking? Oh, yeah, and he convinced him that the little girl was going to have the powers and they could just use her. But she didn't inherit Jack, right? Anyway, so then one day the girl is sitting around with her mom, and the mom's like, hey, I have something I want to tell you. And the girl's like, what? And it's like, you have an older sister. And then that's when Floor like kills her. And then the little girl's like, you're going to kill me too? And she's like, no, you're just a normal person. And she like kind of went crazy because people kept telling her she was normal, I guess, and not special, like not taboo like her mom. So that's what drove her to like create the monster drug that allowed people to turn into monsters, so she could be taboo, so she could be killed. That's like her crazy story. She's about to, and so she crushes up a bunch of the monster drugs and starts to transform into like a black tentacle. Well, she summons like black tentacle stuff. And again, the Isekai girl can't influence it, like with the white goo from before. And so she's like, oh, guess I'm going to die. But that's when the main character, Mino, I think it's Mino, shows up and gets the Isekai girl to run away and go to the priest. And then she fights and kills the girl. And she's like, oh, I'm pretty easy, but good luck. And then this hand like shoots out of her chest. And then this little girl shows up. This little girl who was being put in the iron lung before. And she was like dancing around on a beach in some scene before as well. And she's like, da-da-da-da. And so the main character girl like kills her immediately, but then another one of her like pops out of that skin. And then she's like, oh, it's like, oh, you're not a Isekai girl, you're like a abomination or something. And she's like, oh, that other guy tried to sacrifice his life to destroy me, but he couldn't do it either. Nothing can destroy me. I can live forever and something. And then main character girl's like, no. And then she like, and then the monster girl is like, yay, and then she like summons a bunch of monsters, and the monsters eat her, and they spit out like another version of her, and then all the people who took like the monster drug start transforming into goo, and the princess is like finding out about it, and the Isekai girl's like very concerned. And that's where we leave. So yeah, it's getting more interesting. I don't know where it's going to go in like 2 episodes. It's probably going to be one of these like light novel books. It's going to like 45 volumes, and this is like volume 2. So I thought I was going to be close to being resolved at any level, which is unfortunate. I hope it's more like Lost Song, because that was just an anime made as an anime, and so, or maybe it was based on something, but whatever happened, it like wrapped up in like 13 episodes, which is excellent. And it pulled the same kind of anime thing where it's like, this is kind of boring, and then it was like, oh dang, this is super good. Like, I don't know, out of nowhere. So we got 2 more episodes to see. Hey, what's up, comrades? So I finished up The Executioner, and I don't know, I see some things say Her Way of Life, and other things say Virgin Road. I'm going to go with Virgin Road. I think that's the actual Japanese term for it. So we finished episodes 11 and 12, and they were a lot better. It was mostly just fighting this little girl and the monster she summons, so that was cool. The Mino, because I looked it up, because I finished the season, so I wanted to see, like, what I was expecting going forward here. So Mino and the princess lady, they team up to fight this thing, and it's got like 100 lives because it gave monstro drug to like 100 people or something. And so they're doing their thing. And then we get a lot of exposition in between the fighting. The fighting's cool. It's a lot of like killing monsters, jumping around, using magic swords, using magic, blowing this up, blowing that up. It actually starts off with just Mino and the girl. And then there's like multiple girls, obviously. And then there's like shades. We find out that she's Pandemonium. And that she's the one who's trapped in the white fog. But that because Akari, who is Isekai Girl, which is why I think I was so confused. I like looked it up in my brain. So Akari, who's Isekai Girl, whenever she would use her power, it would like alter parts of the world or strain the world. And finally, Pandemonium was able to get like a little pinky out of the door. And that's how she was able to kind of express a little bit of power. Sorry, I had my map up on my GPS and it dropped. So I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, go there. Trying to set it back up. Okay, so that's all there really is in this episode. Okay, so the big thing, there's just battles, and eventually Pandemonium gets destroyed. She tries to summon a monster. We find out that she's the older sister of the one girl, so she was clearly born before, and then it looks like she was born before her and the mother both came into the world at the same time. I don't know if that's direct. It's based on a light novel series, I found out, that's ongoing and is on episode or novel volume 7 or 8 right now. I don't really care. I'm never going to read it. If it pops up in my giant collection of audiobooks, I may listen to it and review it later, but I think only the first volume has been done, so I have little interest in this series. It's fine. The Yuri stuff isn't that crazy. In fact, I saw a lot of complaints online about people that it wasn't Yuri enough. I guess I should finish the summary. So, they beat the girl, they beat the monster, they drive her back. Ikari, with the help of Akari, who comes, Akari also heals Momo, who's the apprentice lady, and then everyone's like, they're like, and then before the monster dies, before Pandemonium dies, she's like, hey, just so you know, there's a way to, so at some point she tells Akari there's a way to get you back to Japan, and that she'll never be successful in Mino not dying, because Flare will always stop her. So there's definitely more going on there. She might be like an Isekai Girl too, as far as we know. I feel like it's kind of hinting at that. Then, so now, it's like, the show's getting very anime, which is great. But I don't think, it seems like there's no plans at this juncture to ever make more of this. And I don't like it enough to I'm going to get out the light novel and read it up. So this is the end of the road for us. But anyway, so it looks like Flora might be a Isekai lady, but we'll never know. This girl, she's stuck in Pandemonium still. It looks like the sister gets pulled into Pandemonium with her after she died, because we see a little shot of them discussing things at some point. We see a shot of Flare, who's clearly still alive. I thought she was dead. But she's still alive, and she realizes that this girl's still traveling through time. And she makes some comment about it. She's like, I must go kill Menno for a second time. Fun. So that's another reason why I'm like, she must be like an Isekai lady, because she's not affected by all this stuff. Maybe she's just like an aberrant creature, like Menno thought the little girl was before found out she was just Isekai as well. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, Ikari turns back the poison on Momo, so she survives. Momo's very distraught. Oh, the other thing the Pandemonium tells Menno is that sword of salt we saw way long ago, that has the power to kill Ikari. And so they're going to head that way. It's in the same direction they were going anyway, towards Sanctuary, which you don't know anything about that. And then, and then they go on their journey. The princess also realizes that Ikari is like an Isekai girl, and is like, whatever, I'm tired. You guys do whatever you want to do. Right. So, that's the end of season 1. So, it was alright. The fighting in this, the animation for the fighting and the choreography for the fighting in general is pretty good. There wasn't enough of it, but it was pretty good. The show's finally starting to get interesting, and from the Reddit tours that I looked at online, there was some people are very sad it's not lesbian enough, because it's obviously a Japanese property and they do not go hard into the paint like crazy Westerners. about this stuff. They just like allow you to assume whatever you want or make up your own shit, which is why I appreciate the subtlety of like Japanese and Korean media a lot more than like Western media has gotten. There's still fine stuff over here, but it is not subtle at all anymore. For the most part, especially mainstream stuff. Like, it's like they will smash you in the face with what's going on, and it's like, I am not retarded. Can I please just be allowed to like either one, figure it out on my own, or two, just make it up. Like, we don't need definitive answers. That's the point. Like, if you don't have definitive answers, then you have nerds arguing about it. And so these guys were complaining that like in Japanese, it's like we're best friends forever. And they're like, no, they're lesbians. That's how it is. That's how it's written. And it's like, I think the author knows what she wants. I don't really care either way. And Yuri is not really lesbians. It's just girl love. It's like a yaoi with boy love. It's not always like gay. It's just like, oh, we love each other. It's more in like the Interview with the Vampire style, but like less homoerotic, where it's like, oh, I love this guy so much. He's like the best thing that ever happened to me. And I just want to be with him. But it's not like explicitly gay. Some things are more or not. So, but quit your colonization, white woman, most likely, who's complaining on Reddit. Anyway, it sounds like most people on Reddit are like, dude, you totally forget about, like, you totally stop caring about any of this lesbian stuff unless you're an insane person, because the story gets so crazy and it gets so much stuff's happening. So I guess light novels like are pretty exciting and pretty cool. If any of this sounds exciting to you at all, I guess you could pursue that. I would not watch the anime per se. There's really nothing here, and it just like goes and ends. And I'm like tired of this kind of shit. I wish they'd stop making anime based on light novels that were, one, not completed, and two, they don't have like any anticipation of like completing the story, or at least completing like an arc. So it like seems like, there we go. That's one thing I give shonen anime is like, hey, at least they have like a plan and they execute on that plan and they hit arcs, and then they like don't execute until they got more arcs to go. Or just solo animes like that, or best stuff based on movies. Like, the worst thing about basing stuff in these light novels can be like 20 plus volumes, and it's like they're not even finished being written half the time when they make these things. And like, I like Slime Boy, I like Overlord, I love Spice and Wolf, but it's like, can we just, if you're gonna make this into an anime at this point, it's like, can you just make like a little movie of like the first volume and call it good, and then if people are interested, they'll go buy your book. Like, I don't know, it has to be like a 13 episode season or 12 episode season. That's my biggest complaint with this, was like, I invested some time in this, and like, maybe I need to be better at like looking this stuff up. I don't mind getting like a sneak preview to see like, oh, I might be interested in like listening to the book on tape, or getting this light novel, like getting into the book series, right? Actually, I think that's kind of cool, is like another medium to like get more fans into the hobby or whatever, if you will. But there's so many of these that are just like, oh, it's based on a light novel that's not finished, may never be finished, and this anime is clearly never going to get like another season. And so like, I just wasted my time watching this when I could have just read like some reviews and then gotten like the first volume of the book and at least had like a start and a conclusion that was like satisfactory. Anyway, that's my journal just of The Executioner and the Virgin Road. It's fine. I mean, again, it's like, if any of this stuff sounds interesting to anybody who's listening, I would say just get the light novels. Just get the first volume of the light novel. I'm sure it's like $10, and then you can go from there. Because I feel like I was missing so much stuff in this as well. Was the other thing. It's like they really cut out stuff, and I don't know how many volumes this is supposed to cover, but they just like speed through stuff. That's why the problem with these light novel translations into anime is like, oftentimes it's like, okay, I feel like I'm missing a lot of information. Right, and reading the Saga of Tanya the Evil, I feel like they did a decent job of the anime. But yeah, there you go. All right, cool. So it was fine. Catch y'all later.